Today, Donald Trump gives a major economic speech in Detroit, and he mainly stuck to his script, which was a major accomplishment for him. And he claimed that this is for the middle class. In fact, he said, it's a conversation about how to make America great again for everyone, and especially, and I say especially, for those who have the very least. Really? Well, we'll be the judge of that. First, let me show you a quick portion of his speech.
You cannot ever start a small business under the tremendous regulatory burden that you have today in our country. I'm going to end it. I am going to cut regulations massively. Massively.
Okay. Massively. I got it. Okay, so you get a sense of it, right? Wait a minute. How is cutting regulations that oftentimes protects middle-class workers and certainly protects consumers going to help them? You see, of course it's not going to do that. He's going to cut taxes on the rich and regulations to help the rich. Of course, that's his economic plan. I'll tell you why at the end. But first, let me run through all of his policy proposals. He says, this is a good one, so I'm starting out with the best, that he would have child care payments be fully tax deductible. Well, that would be lovely. That would actually help the middle class because it's not easy to work if you've got kids, and it's not easy to have them taken care of if it's not tax deductible. A lot of parents deal with that. Okay, look, lovely. Credit where credit is due. And then he would withdraw from the Trans-Pacific Partnership. That's at least what he claims. That would be positive, but I'm not sure I believe him. He says he would renegotiate NAFTA. Again, I'm putting this in the positive category, although you should look at that with a healthy skepticism. Okay, now let's move on to negative territory, which is abundant. He would restart the Keystone XL pipeline. Of course he would. More dirty fuel in the air. He loves it. And then he would withdraw the U.S. from Paris Climate Agreement. Fantastic. We're going to go way backwards on the issue of climate change. On that alone, you should never consider voting for, right? To put us back at least 4 years on these climate change proposals, not just the United States of America, but if we withdraw, then other countries like China and India might withdraw. Sets the whole world back 4 years on fighting climate change. He says he would end environmental regulations by Barack Obama. So watch out, man. If you care about not just climate change, but clean air, clean water, non-poisoned water, well, sad day for you. We're going to end all the environmental regulations under Obama because, hey, his business buddy's got to make more money. Wait, remind me again how this helps the middle class? How does your kids getting poisoned in Flint, Michigan help those kids? No, it doesn't help them. It helps the rich and the powerful. That's what this is about. All right. He also wants to do a temporary moratorium on all regulations. That's so preposterous. So, but Donald, you can say, hey, something is regulated too much or something is regulated too little. For example, if you don't regulate our food or our drugs at all, you might be regulating them too little because it might poison us. If you say, hey, you know what, you've inspected the elevators in my building 6 times, could we do it 4 times instead? You might say, okay, that's overregulation. But just to say we'll have no regulations going forward, a moratorium on any regulation is insanity because it depends on what's being regulated. Now, one of the main things that he's going to remove is regulations on Wall Street. What happened? I thought your whole thing was Hillary Clinton's too much in the pocket of Wall Street. Here you're saying, I'm going to be even more in the pocket of Wall Street. He says that regulations on things like Wall Street have, quote, put a lead weight on the economy, an anchor dragging us down. So I'll give you a quick chart here of what happened after Dodd-Frank. And I've told you this before. Dodd-Frank was not end-all, be-all. I think it was very, very light regulation, and partly on purpose. But he claims Dodd-Frank killed the economy. Well, that's weird. The economy seems to have gone up after Dodd-Frank and fairly consistently. It's almost as if Donald Trump isn't telling the truth. Okay. Now, in the past, he had proposed tax rates that were so low that it would create about a $10 trillion hole in our budget. It was so outrageous that even other Republicans were like, Donald, that's a bit much. So his earlier proposal was 4 tax brackets, 0%, 10%, 20%, and the highest rate would be 25%. So now none of the math adds up on that. And even the most outrageous Republicans who have all this voodoo math about how it's going to grow the economy, et cetera, they couldn't get it to add up either. So they're like, all right, Donald, let's reel that back in a little bit. So today, his new policy proposal is 12%, 25%, and 33%. That would still be a gigantic tax cut, and mostly, of course, for the rich. They would get billions and billions of dollars, which, by the way, would also help Donald Trump. Of course! And then he is going to also lower the corporate tax rate to 15%. Who would that help? To some degree, Donald Trump. And finally, he would eliminate what they call the death tax, which is actually, of course, the estate tax. And who would that help? Donald Trump's family. Well, presumably, if he has any money left over after several more bankruptcies that he'll likely go through. So it turns out this whole thing about, I'm going to help the middle class and the people who have the least is, of course, as usual, a giant crock. In reality, almost all of his proposals are to help the richest, most powerful people in the country, multinational corporations. Wait a minute, I thought you were going to keep the multinational corporations in check. So now, this is not a very popular speech. So why did he do it now? Now, in the past, what's worked for him is more populist stuff. I'm going to go and get the bankers. I mean, it's a joke. He was never going to do that, but he did it. He said it to get votes. He said, oh, Hillary Clinton's in the pocket of Wall Street and the bankers. And so why go in this direction? Because he's not getting any money, Lebowski. He's doing the same thing every other politician does now, especially the Republicans, because this speech was not designed to get your votes. This speech was designed to get him money from the donors. And some of those donors have already bailed. They've already put out another Republican candidate. And this is him basically trying to stop the bleeding, going, no, donors, don't worry. You know what? I'll be better than any other Republican kiss ass. I'll get rid of all regulations. I'll take corporate tax rates all the way down to 15%. What else do you need, Daddy? What else do you need? So this is Trump sucking up to the Republican donors. That's what this speech was about. Now, let's see if the money pours in and it accomplishes its mission. But I'll tell you what, this is not the way you run a populist campaign. So he's never going to outrace Hillary Clinton anyway. She's got more money and she will have more money than him. So I think this was actually a huge error for Donald Trump. He would have been better off giving a fiery speech after talking about how he was going to go after the rich and the powerful and pretending to be progressive, pretending to be populist. That's a much better political strategy at this point. But a lot of the Republican strategists and consultants and establishment figures have won him over, and they convinced him, Donald, you need the money. And part of the reason they convinced him that, because he's tired of spending his own money. He's thinking, wait a minute, I was supposed to make money out of this thing, not lose money. All right, fine, donors, what do you need? What do you need? I'll give it to you, just like any standard politician. So that's what this speech was about today.